30 years ago, world leaders dared to imagine a gender-equal world.
Women's rights are human rights once and for all.
They pledged a better future for all women and girls. Freedom from poverty. Zero violence. Full and equal decision-making power. Equal opportunities and equal pay. It's up to us to make that vision a reality. We are the first generation who can. No matter the stakes, no time to wait, no steps back. 2025 is our year. Rights, equality, empowerment for all women and girls.
Excellencies, distinguished guests and partners, welcome to UN Women's International Women's Day celebration for 2025. My name is Ajong Lee. I'm the External Relations Team Leader here at UN Women's Center, Knowledge and Partnership Center in the Republic of Korea. It's my privilege and honor to serve you as the Master of Ceremony again this year following last year's celebration. I know many of you are joining us for the second or even the third time, and I'm very, very happy that this is becoming an annual occasion whereby we come together and we celebrate the lives and contributions of women and girls in our lives and around the world. Now, we'll be providing simultaneous interpretation services throughout the event. Korean is channel 1 and English is channel 2. So please kindly use the device that are provided on the table. And if you do not have the device, you can raise your hands and one of us will be happy to serve you. Even if you do understand English or Korean, we would like to encourage you to please use the device because our true interpreters have been studying very hard and preparing for this event. So before we begin, how about we give a big round of applause for our interpreters?
Excellencies, distinguished guests and partners, welcome to the UN Women's 2025 International Women's Day celebration in the Republic of Korea. Today, we are organizing this event in English as we have so many distinguished guests from different countries. Today, channel 1 will be for Korean, channel 2 will be the English. 오늘
we will start this event. But we cannot do this without first saying Happy International Women's Day, right? You know the tradition already, ambassadors. You've been here before. So let's say Happy International Women's Day in recognition of wonderful women and girls in our lives. And to our women participants, this is for us, for your life, for your contributions, and for your service. So can we please look around and say Happy International Women's Day to each other. Women's Day. Now we'll begin by playing 2 official video messages sent from New York on the occasion of the International Women's Day. First by UN Women Executive Director Sima Baus, and then Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations.
On International Women's Day, we celebrate the power, resilience, and leadership of women and girls. We take stock of where we stand, and we recommit to accelerate gender equality for all women and girls. In 1995, the world promised an equal world for all women and girls in the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, a groundbreaking framework for gender equality. 30 years later, our world today is more equal than ever before. More women are in positions of power. Women are reshaping the world of work, and we have stronger laws to protect women from domestic violence. But women's and girls' rights are facing unprecedented threats worldwide, from higher levels of discrimination, weaker legal protections, and less funding for programs and bodies that support women. A girl born today will never see the end of extreme poverty because it remains 137 years away. Every day, more than 140 women and girls are killed by members of their own family, and the world registered a disturbing 50% increase in the number of women and girls living in conflict. This is simply unacceptable. Today, on International Women's Day and every day, we must march forward for women's rights. We cannot be paralyzed by setbacks. We must push forward with resolve, building on the progress we've made together. I count on all of you. Happy International Women's Day.
When the doors of equal opportunity are open for women and girls, everyone wins. Equal societies are more prosperous and peaceful and the foundation of sustainable development. On this International Women's Day, we recognize 30 years of progress and achievement since the landmark United Nations Conference in Beijing. This transformed the rights of women and reaffirmed those rights as human rights. Since then, women and girls have shattered barriers, defied stereotypes, and demanded their rightful place. But we must be clear-eyed about the challenge. From pushback to rollback, women's human rights are under attack. Age-old horrors, violence, discrimination, and economic inequality still plague societies. And newest threats, such as biased algorithms and programming inequalities into online spaces, opening up new arenas of harassment and abuse. Instead of mainstreaming equal rights, we are seeing the mainstreaming of misogyny. We must fight these outrages and keep working to level the playing field for women and girls. We need action to unlock finance so countries can invest in equality and to prioritize those investments. Action to open up equal opportunities for decent work, close the gender pay gap, and tackle challenges around care work. Action to strengthen and implement laws to end all forms of violence against women and girls. Action to secure women's full participation in decision-making, including in peace building. And action to remove the obstacles to women and girls in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. The United Nations Pact for the Future and the Global Digital Compact offer blueprints to guide these actions. When women and girls can rise, we all thrive. Together, let's stand firm in making rights, equality, and empowerment a reality for all women and girls, for everyone, everywhere.
Now, just a little explanation about the host and the organizer of today's event. Our center, formerly the UN Women's Center of Excellence for Gender Equality, was established in 2022 in partnership with the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family in the Republic of Korea. The center was founded with a shared mandate to advance gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls across Asia and the Pacific. Located in Seoul, our center contributes to capacity development, strategic partnerships, and knowledge exchange on promising practices and lessons learned. In early 2025, the center was rebranded with a new name to emphasize its key functions in facilitating partnership development and knowledge exchange. So we would like to take this opportunity to thank the generous support from the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family that has made this event possible. Now, in that context, I'd like to invite His Excellency Kim Ki-nam, Assistant Minister of Gender Equality and Family, Republic of Korea, for his congratulatory speech.
Good morning. I am Kim Ki-nam, Assistant Minister for Planning and Coordination Office at the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family. It's a great pleasure to be part of UN Women's Commemoration on International Women's Day 2025. Today's event is themed under for all women and girls' rights, equality, and empowerment. And I hope we can raise the awareness of the rights of women in the Asia Pacific and strengthen the efforts for gender equality. And thank you for all the staff of UN Women who put all the efforts into this event. And thank you, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, the former UN Secretary General, for joining this event out of your busy schedule, and Alice Miriam Davidian, Special Representative for UN Women, Afghanistan country, and speakers, ambassadors, and participants from home and abroad. Let us remind the meaning of Bread and Roses, the slogan of U.S. female laborers and workers in 1908, and the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family in Korea will squarely focus on creating a society which is gender equal, where everyone works together and cares for one another, and where everyone can enjoy a safe everyday life. Now, many countries, including Korea, are faced with various complex tasks responding to new violence, women's participation in economic activities, low birth rate, and aging arising due to rapid digital technology and industrial development. And especially Korean government is trying very hard to prevent violence against women, supporting victims' recovery to everyday life, and building the institutions and systems. And we will advance the system to detect and delete digital sexual crime materials, and we will build digital sexual crime victim support center and support victims and prevent digital sexual crimes, and we will make active efforts. And we are supporting women who would like to work through 159 women job centers across the nation, and we are providing counseling, job training, internship opportunities, introducing works, and providing consulting. And we will also introduce basic plan to foster women's economic activities and prevent career interruption throughout the life cycle from youth to aging. And also, gender equality is closely related to overcoming low birth rate crisis, and we will continue to support both life and work-life balance by expanding care services. And we will also try to work on family-friendly companies. And this year marks the 30th anniversary of Beijing Action Plan. So it's a significant milestone, and I hope we can host APEC Women and the Economic Forum in August successfully, and I hope this event will set up a milestone for rights.
Thank you so much, Assistant Minister, for your speech and all your work to realize the vision of gender equal society here in the Republic of Korea. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great privilege and honor to introduce you to His Excellency Ban Ki-moon. Now, many of us here feel that this is our dream to see him in person, right? His Excellency Ban Ki-moon's lifelong legacy for gender equality is still with us. And I'd like to acknowledge that part of the reasons why UN Women exist here is truly because of him. So ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Mr. Ban Ki-moon.
Thank you for your very kind introduction. Mr. Kim Ki-nam, Assistant Minister for Gender Equality and Family, Republic of Korea. Ms. Alison Miriam Davidian, Special Representative for the UN Women Afghanistan Country Office, and Excellencies, distinguished ambassadors, diplomatic corps members, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Before I begin my own speech, I'd like to thank my deepest appreciation to United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres and Ambassador Sima Bahus, who is now Under-Secretary General in charge of UN Women, for their very kind message on this very auspicious occasion. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to speak to you on the occasion of today's International Women's Day commemoration. I was informed that since this year's International Women's Day fell on last Saturday, March 8th, we are commemorating it today. Taking this opportunity, I extend my warm welcome to Ms. Davian, Special Representative for the UN Women Afghanistan Country Office, for your hard work on the challenging situation. Thank you for your presence and all the best for your future endeavor. At the same time, the attendance of many ambassadors and diplomatic corps members and supporters and friends demonstrate global attention to and support for the further engagement and empowerment of women and girls. As we gather here today, the theme of this year's commemoration, I quote, "For all women and girls, rights, equality, empowerment," resonate deeply, deeply with me. During my tenure as the 8th Secretary General of the United Nations, I highly prioritized International Women's Day. So today's event brings back many memories from those commemorations and the remarks I delivered during those days. I believe today's theme serves as a powerful reminder that we are still very far from where we need to be in the sphere of women's rights. Indeed, we are struggling with entrenched inequalities that affect not only women's lives, but also the social, economic, and political development of our entire world. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, which was adopted in 1995, is one of the most significant milestones in our global pursuit of gender equality. It is not a mere framework, but a call to action that demands the full participation of women and girls in every aspect of life, everywhere. The Beijing Platform for Action set out a bold agenda across 12 critical areas, from economic empowerment and education to health, violence prevention, and political participation. Since my time as UN Secretary General, I have championed this agenda because I believed that I continue to believe that the empowerment of women is not just a moral imperative, but a game changer for peace and security and economic development. We cannot achieve the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development or solve conflicts or combat climate change without achieving SDG goal number 5, which means the empowerment of women and girls. As this year marks the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and the 15th anniversary of establishing UN Women, we need to look back on 3 decades of progress and 15 years of progress when it comes to UN Women, and ask ourselves how we have done enough. Have we done enough? While there is much to celebrate, more girls in school, more women in leadership roles, and more global recognition of gender equality, I have to admit, I think we must admit that women and girls all around the world still face tremendous challenges in both low and high income countries and their dignified life in their social life. According to UN Women's 2023 report, 1 in 3 women worldwide will experience physical or sexual violence in their lifetime. And the global gender pay gap remains at least 20%, with women earning, on average, 20% less than men for work for equal value. In the corporate world, women occupy only 25% of the board-level positions globally. In political offices, only 25% of parliamentarians worldwide are women. When it comes to parliamentarians, women parliamentarians, in 2012, I was paying an official visit in my capacity as Secretary General, and I addressed the National Assembly. At the time, I remember later who became president, Park Geun-hye. She was a member of parliament, and there were very few women parliamentarians in 2012. In my speech, I said that there must be at least 20% of women in this hall. Then it took, I think, 12 years, exactly 12 years. The current membership of Korean Parliament, exactly 20%. I am not much satisfied, but still grateful that they have taken note of my urging to the members of Parliament. Ladies and gentlemen, in the corporate world, business, women occupy 25% of the board-level positions globally. In political offices, only 25% of parliamentarians worldwide are women. So this is average, whether you are living in developed or developing countries. In this regard, gap between commitments and actions remain unfortunately wide. Therefore, on this occasion, I call on all the government, development partners, businesses, philanthropies, civil society organizations, and global citizens to step up as a matter of top priority to fully realize the promises we made 30 years ago in Beijing. I am personally proud that I played an important role in establishing UN Women in 2010 in order to accelerate the UN's work on gender equality and women's empowerment. And I'm also pleased to see UN Women this year celebrating its landmark 15th anniversary as a global force for good, connecting the dots to leave no one behind. But the reality is that UN Women cannot do this work alone. It needs every government, every institutions, and each and every one of you to help all women and girls live a life free from violence, discrimination, and injustice. Taking this opportunity of 15th anniversary of establishing of UN Women, I have something to tell you, some secret things. When, as a new Secretary General, I really wanted to establish UN Women. In every country, every society, every companies, establishing a new bureau or new big organization, it is very hard, very hard. United Nations, if my memory serves me correct, since then, I don't think any new organizations has been established in the United Nations, except UN Women. When I pushed this one, there was a strong complaints from diplomatic corps, particularly some ambassadors. Then one ambassador had an interview with the New York Times. I was so surprised one day morning. Quote, what he said, Secretary General is not the king. We are not his subject, unquote. In his own name, it was a quoted name. I knew, I don't want to reveal the name of that ambassador and the country. I met the Prime Minister of that country. Prime Minister of that country. Mr. Prime Minister, I never claimed that I am a king. How come your ambassador accused me like this way, publicly, in New York Times? Oh, he was embarrassed. He was embarrassed. Then he immediately sent his national security advisor and his ambassador sitting before me in my office, apologized. Of course, he was recalled. He was recalled. After that, after this story spread, all the ambassadors didn't make any opposition. That's why I was able to establish this very hard work of establishing big organization with, with the UN Women, with the Under-Secretary General level. Then I was thinking that who should be the first one leader? Then there was some former prime ministers, women prime minister, former president, etc. Then I chose Colombian former president. Now she's still in UN system now, and you know her name. But in any way, she made the big foundation. After serving 2 years, she went back to Colombia and became president again. She was re-elected. After that, she came back to UN again. So this women empowerment really makes a lot of support and impact now. Again, ladies and gentlemen, I'll just try to finish. Empowering women and girls is not just the right things to do. It is also the smartest single action to spur global progress for a more sustainable, peaceful, and prosperous future for all of humanity. Some people may contend that gender equality is not possible to achieve due to the different culture, but this is simply not true. Culture is often used as an excuse for doing nothing or not doing enough to maintain the status quo. And history shows many powerful examples where human progress was made when harmful cultural practices were halted and instead seen as injustice and oppression. With the political will, concerted efforts, and the shared commitment, we can break down the structural barriers to ensure all women and girls can thrive. We cannot wait another decade before we take serious, meaningful steps to achieve gender equality. The simple fact is when women and girls are suffering and their capacities and potentials are not maximized, this hampers us from having a better future. This is why I care. And this is why we must all take gender equality as our serious mission, a top priority business. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, let me now highlight 3 aspects that I believe require our particular attention in our work for gender equality. First, the empowerment of women and girls with disabilities is a critical part of our fight for gender equality. I always emphasize the importance of inclusive societies because true progress cannot be achieved if we leave behind those who face the greatest barriers. Second, we need to engage men and boys in challenging gender norms. Too often, we end up excluding men and boys from these conversations on women's rights. And in order to bring them on board, we need to make particular efforts to be strategic, welcoming, and inclusive. Third, the private sector must play its part as a key actor for accelerating gender equality with the firm belief that equality means a better business and elevated prosperity. You can adopt family-friendly policies, offer equal pay for equal work, and take more proactive measures to attract, train, retain, and take more proactive measures to attract, train, retain, and promote female talent. I encourage private sector leaders present here today to commit to advancing gender equality in their offices. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the empowerment of women and girls is the key to unlocking a better future for all. Next generation is counting on us. Let us not fail them. Let us together ensure that the next 10 years will be different from today. We should not just enjoy today's celebration in this room. We should go out and translate our words into concrete action for rights, equality, and empowerment of all women and girls. Thank you for your leadership and strong commitment for gender empowerment. Thank you very much. 감사합니다.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I ask you to please stand up and then just in recognition in honor of Mr. Ban Ki-moon's lifelong legacy for gender equality. Thank you very much. Thank you. Now, next we are going to take group photo, and we have 250 people in this hall, so it's not an easy exercise, ladies and gentlemen. So please kindly be patient with us a little bit. I will explain to you. We'll take 3 photos. The first photo, the photographer will be standing on the step and then basically facing you so that we can take picture of everyone. 2 photographers will take and we'll basically combine those 2 photos. So we'll take that, and then we'll ask the ambassadors and distinguished speakers and partners to kindly come forward to the stage in 2 rounds. So please kindly be patient and follow my instruction, please. So we will first ask the photographer to kindly say 1, 2, 3, and then take the photo from the front. Much. Now we'll ask kindly our ambassadors and speakers in tables 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to kindly come to the stage. Tables 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, ambassadors and speakers. If you are seated in table 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, please kindly come forward. Okay, please kindly smile. Very nice. 1, 2, 3, smile. Kindly say after me for all women and girls, okay? So 1, 2, 3, for all women and girls. Thank you. Please kindly go back, and the speakers, please kindly remain. Okay, thank you very much. So let's hold up the picture. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you so much. Please kindly go back to your seat.
World leaders dreamed of a reality where all women and girls have equal rights and opportunity by 2030.
Promise us that you will keep your commitments and invest in our future.
With 6 years to go, can we get there? At the current rate, a girl born today will be 39 before women hold as many seats in parliament as men, 68 before child marriage ends, and 137 before extreme poverty for women and girls is eradicated. At the same time, there is more evidence than ever before that progress is possible. Countries with domestic violence laws have lower rates of intimate partner violence. The digital divide is closing, with nearly 75% of women owning mobile phones in 2023. And there are 5.4 million more girls in school now than there were in 2015. In the face of conflict, crisis, and climate change, we cannot afford to overlook half the world's population. The costs of gender inequality are too high, and the benefits of equality too great to ignore. We're calling on world leaders to commit and invest now, so that all women and girls can fulfill their potential. Gender equality is not just a dream. It can be a reality, but only if we all step up.
So, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to invite Ms. Alison Davidian, Special Representative UN Women Afghanistan Country Office, based in Kabul. She came all the way from Afghanistan to solve this event, so we are very grateful to Alison for her precious time. Before leading UN Women Afghanistan Office, she led governance, peace, and security programs across Asia and the Pacific and UN Women's Regional Office, and also managed the Access to Justice program in Uganda. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Alison.
I was in Kabul on the 15th of August 2021, the day the Taliban took control of the city, and with it, the entire country. It was a day that sent shockwaves across the world as a group with one of the most brutal records on women's rights declared their victory to the world. And I witnessed firsthand how decades of progress on women's rights disappeared, it felt like overnight. Women were told straight away to stay at home, and over time their access to employment and the workforce has been largely stripped away. The Ministry of Women's Affairs was abolished. That was one of the first things that the Taliban did. And it's been replaced by morality police that enforce discriminatory decrees. Girls are not able to go to high school in Afghanistan, and women are not able to go to university, making it the only country in the world that bans women and girls from secondary education as a matter of policy. Now, the Taliban has been in power for just over 3 years, but the impacts of its policies are already being felt and will be felt for generations to come. We have data that shows that by next year, 2026, the impact of having 1.1 million girls out of high school correlates with a rise in maternal mortality by 50%. And by 2066, the impact of not having women in higher education will cost Afghanistan $9.6 billion, which is equivalent to 2/3 of its GDP. But this is not just Afghanistan's crisis. Afghanistan's situation is extreme, but it's a reminder, and a very stark reminder, of how precarious progress is on women's rights, and how quickly the erosion of women's rights can spread globally. Oppression, it doesn't always start with guns and violence. It can also start with laws and policies. It starts when rights are treated as negotiable and freedoms, basic freedoms, are treated as optional. We're at a pretty critical juncture when it comes to women's rights and gender equality. The very foundation of gender equality feels like it's under siege, and it's quite an existential moment. Multilateralism is unraveling. Geopolitical tensions are deepening. And the cooperation on shared problems that we have taken for granted feels like it's becoming more and more fragile. And every day we open the news and the headlines speak of chaos and unpredictability and crisis. The tectonic plates of global power are shifting, and women's rights, women's bodies and choices are caught right in the middle. In times of instability, one of the first casualties are women's rights. And as global power shifts, authoritarian regimes often tend to want to dismantle gender equality institutions, laws and policies because they see it as a threat to their control. And we see it. We see it in the weakening of laws that protect women from violence. We see it in the rollbacks on reproductive freedoms. We see it in the suspension of affirmative action policies that have been designed to address historical injustices. And these are not isolated setbacks. The erosion of women's rights goes hand in hand with the denial of fundamental freedoms. And at a time where the world feels more and more unstable, gender equality is being sidelined. It's being pushed aside. It's being deprioritized and defunded. Why? Because at its heart, gender equality questions systems of power. And power does not like to be questioned. I've been working on women's rights for almost 2 decades now, and during that time we've seen evidence that is irrefutable that shows that gender equality isn't just a moral imperative. It's just not just like a nice thing to do or a good thing to do. It's an operational imperative. It's the very foundation of and driver of stable, secure and prosperous societies. We have so much evidence to show that when women are part of economies, they thrive. When women are in leadership in government, economies are stronger and more stable. When women are part of negotiating peace agreements, those agreements last longer. And when women are part of the executive boards of companies, those companies do better. All of this points to a truth that I think we sometimes forget, and it's a truth that's both simple, but it's quite radical, and that is that men and women in all of our diversity are equal, and that our societies thrive when that equality is fostered, invested in, and celebrated. But despite all of this evidence that gender equality benefits everyone, the pushback is not only persisting, but it's deepening. Does it matter? Does it really matter if gender equality is backsliding? It does. Because when women are excluded, we all lose. We all lose when we lose half of our potential and the potential of future generations to contribute to more prosperous societies. And if we truly believe in progress, we need to act. And we need to act now. And that means 3 things: fund, protect, empower. Fund. We need to fund women's organizations. Women's organizations are the lifeblood of change. They have the connections, the networks, the trust of communities to really reach women and girls, the most vulnerable women and girls. But despite this, they only get a fraction of global funding. We need to continue to invest in them, invest in civil society leaders and frontline humanitarians who are really driving change. Secondly, we need to protect laws that protect women. Must not only exist on paper, they need to be enforced, and we need to resist every rollback. We also need to double down our investment in initiatives and programs that empower women, especially around education, employment, and entrepreneurship. It's not just about giving women opportunities, but these are the tools needed to really address the structural drivers of inequality. The fight for women's rights isn't a one-time victory. It's a perpetual battle, and we need to fight it every single day. And finally, we need to empower women's leadership, and we need to intentionally break down the cycles of exclusion. And it's important that women are not just in the room, but they're leading the conversations that affect them and they affect their communities, their voices and their vision. This is how we create a future that's not only just, but also transformative. When we fail to act, when we fail to fund, when we fail to protect and empower, we're not just losing progress on women's rights, we're losing progress on societies as a whole. And I've seen firsthand the devastating impacts, the harsh realities, when men are treated as the standard and women are the exception. And maybe you're thinking, oh, Afghanistan, it's an isolated case. It's very far away. But Afghanistan is an extreme example of the gender inequalities that exist in all of our societies. And because it's extreme, we think it can never happen to us. It can never happen to our societies. It can never happen to our communities. But then one day, we wake up, there's a change of power, there's a new regime, and the things we took for granted are not there anymore. This isn't just about women. This is about our economies thriving, our society stabilizing, and humanity advancing. Gender equality is not just a side issue, it's the very foundation of a stable, prosperous, and more just world. And that's why Afghanistan is not just a cautionary tale, but it's a call to action. The tectonic plates of global power are shifting, and the question is, will women be buried under them? Or will we rise, and will we together shape a better future? The choice is ours, and the situation has never been more urgent. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Davidian, for your courage and for your passionate call to action. Thank you so much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to invite our next speaker, Ms. Ye-won Kim. Our Korean participants, you may have seen Ms. Ye-won Kim on TV shows such as Sebashi or China Class. If you haven't watched those videos yet, please do after this event because they are very good. Ms. Ye-won Kim is Korea's first public interest attorney with a visual disability and the founder of the Disability Rights Advocacy Center. She has been providing pro bono support to women and children who are victims of crimes in vulnerable situations. As a renowned human rights activist and social advocate, she was awarded a presidential commendation in 2021 and received the Grand Award for Public Interest Lawyer from the Korea Bar Association in 2023. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Attorney Kim.
Firstly, it's a very great honor and privilege for me to come here and share my story. I'd like to share my story in Korean.
First of all, It's great to see all of you here, and I know you have come all the way despite your busy schedule. And I'm so honored and grateful for the opportunity to share my thoughts with such a distinguished audience. Today, I'd like to use my story to talk about the unresolved issues around women's rights. I work as an attorney at the Disability Rights Law Center. And it's a small law firm, and a lot of people think of it as an NGO because what we do is a bit unusual. The reason it's unusual is because I only represent people who are underrepresented in society, like people with disabilities, people who are very young, very old, or very poor. And I represent them pro bono. I work with victims of crime in a very vulnerable situation where there is no one else to advocate for them. So I can't just support cases because eventually you have to change an unjust law or policy if you don't want it to happen again. So I'm a public interest attorney who supports cases pro bono, but my main focus is on improving institutions. So many people wonder why I do this because I don't get sponsored, I'm not funded by the state. I do pro bono cases, and a lot of people think I do this because I'm disabled, but that's not it. I do this because I believe in the fact that observing and raising a voice helps changing the world. And the reason why I do this is I believe this is linked to what we do to protect women and girls. So I'm going to talk about 3 observation points for all women and girls. First, well, it's about observing what you think is a thing of the past to see if it really is. I am visually impaired. I see the world with only one eye, and I've lived my whole life with only one eye because I lost it in a medical accident at birth. But it's hard to say it was just a medical accident because if you look closely, you can see where women and girls were at the time. And I was the first child, and my mom had a difficult delivery when she found out long after the fact that her water had broken. My dad wasn't at the hospital at the time, and her only carer was my mom's mother-in-law, my grandma. After seeing her almost unconscious in the delivery room, the doctor told my grandma that there was no way she was going to have a natural birth, that she should have a cesarean section, but my grandma was against it. Her reasoning was that I was a girl, and if I was born surgically, with the medical science of the time, my mom could only have a maximum of 2 children, and they couldn't both be girls. So my grandma refused to a cesarean section, saying a baby doesn't need to survive. When my mom eventually lost consciousness, the doctor tried to pull me out non-surgically, first with medical forceps. When that didn't work out, finally with a hook to pull me out of her body. I lost one of my eyes in the process. No one ever told my mom what happened to me that day, just saying it was a miracle I was born alive. And 13 years later, a nurse in that surgery room became a colleague of my mom, and the secret was revealed. But 13 years have passed, and there was no legal means we could use, and I felt really frustrated. And I wanted to help people who were frustrated, and I really wanted to help them out occupationally. So I became an attorney. So I think that really changed my life, but I still don't understand my grandma's choice. She is also a woman But without a moment's hesitation, she didn't agree to a surgery just because I was a daughter. And some would say, well, it was 4 years ago, and the society actually preferred a boy over a girl, so that could have been a reason. And now the times have changed, and it wouldn't happen. Would it be really the case? I've recently, I meet a lot of people, and I've recently represented a woman who was sexually assaulted and who was born with a severe intellectual disability. So I went to the woman's home and I met her mom, and her mom said she's going to book surgery for her daughter. And I asked her what kind of surgery her daughter was having, and she told me that her daughter, the victim, was booked in for permanent sterilization, which involves cutting her fallopian tubes so that she can't get pregnant in the future. Her only concern was that her daughter couldn't even manage her periods properly anyway, so she was wondering if her daughter should have hysterectomy. I was freaking out, but I tried to be calm and asked, does your daughter understand what you are doing? Did she agree? And the answer was, she doesn't understand anyway. It's a surgery that parents do for their children who will suffer from unwanted pregnancies. When I heard that, I said, if your daughter hasn't given her consent and you're going on with this surgery, I'll have no choice but to report to you to the police. Is it all right with you? This is not from 4 years ago. This is happening today. It's not from the past. It's not from a different country. It's not from a different culture. It's not just an exception. As you can see, it's from the same country, same era, but for women with disabilities, for girls, for vulnerable people, these things do happen even now. So I observe these cases and then I ask questions. Do these things just happen in the past? And second is to observe things that we think are already institutionalized in law, things that have been fought for a long time and are believed to be settled in law, in manuals, in practice to a certain extent. We are faced with situations where these things are quickly being retreated because of institutional regression. We heard just now from Alison. We see such examples in many countries around the world where there's a change of political or religious leadership and the rights that women have always had are suddenly threatened. And this is not just a backlash, but this is a structural regression. And I will share with you what I experienced recently. In the recent few years, Korea's Criminal Procedure Act was revised. And now the police can close a case without the supervision or review of prosecutor's office. So now the police is in charge of investigation. Now they have more burden and they have more authority. Then the more authority they have, the system to control investigation should function better. But that system has weakened due to the sudden revision of the law. So what happens on the scene is like this. A woman reports that she was sexually harassed at work. The police close the case with no charges and tell her, if this gets out, it's going to hurt your reputation at work and it's going to be embarrassing for you. So I'm going to be considerate and just leave it at that. And I was really frustrated because we already know that an investigation authority should not be closing a case like this. It's in a violation and breach of law. Saying like this to a victim of sexual harassment, but this bad practice has come back. And we have been far more advanced than this. We have been talking about how to do humanitarian investigation and how to better support victims without prejudice. But the system that controls investigation didn't work well. And suddenly, all of a sudden, it retreated and regressed. And we couldn't be complacent. We cannot just think that there is a law and it's okay, and there is a manual, it's okay. The same applies to raising a kid. And Korea, which has the world's fastest declining population, has recently enacted a number of laws and policies to address this ultra-low birth rate. And it encourages paternal leave, free childcare, and provides a lot of subsidies. And when I was about 7 months pregnant with my third child, I went to the police station to give a victim statement with a woman with intellectual disabilities who was pregnant from a sexual assault and 1 month away from giving birth. We walked into the police station as victim and lawyer. But rather than the case itself, I was really concerned about the baby who was going to be born from her. And I am also a social welfare activist. It was really difficult to find a way for this disabled woman to raise a child alone. And I made a phone call more than 100 times, but I got refusal from a single mother facility because this woman was divorced before, and was refused from the disabled facility because they didn't accept both mother and child. And an adoption agency also refused her because there was a possibility that this baby would be born disabled. So this woman gave up on raising her baby, and I found a nursery. And I registered a newborn's birth. And when I was moving to the facility, I thought all kinds of birth support measures are just a pipe dream for those in the most vulnerable situations. So lastly, I want to talk about newly created discriminations. So I now see as an attorney for 15 years that these new technologies such as AI, blockchain, and augmented reality sound like we are moving to the front, but they actually result in a lot of different sexual violence. And these violence actually are created based on online. And these new types of oppression and discrimination start from online, but they actually result in offline violation. And what's really frustrating is the society actually easily blames women. You didn't look it up properly. You installed this program. You created the account. You sent a picture. It's your fault. You heard about this a lot, right? Why did you dress like this? Why did you go there at that time? So, you don't look into the society doesn't look into this cycle of repeated crime or damage, but it's too convenient and easy to blame victims. So a perpetrator who had access to a young woman with a disability online won her favor, isolated her emotionally, and exploited her. But her father complains that he has raised his child wrongly. And I tell him the same thing over and over again. It's not your daughter's fault. And before people acknowledge that there is this structural discrimination using a new tool, the online, I need to repeat the same thing over and over again. Some people think if the society has a better awareness, then we will have better gender equality. But I don't believe in that. Because 100 people who had better awareness passed away yesterday, and today, 100 people who don't have any awareness were newly born. So awareness doesn't change naturally. And discrimination and oppression are not naturally overcome or abolished. So I tell my 3 kids about what I have observed, and I tell them, this is strange. And I tell them about the reality, the gender pay gap of 20%, and why only women represent less than 30% of boardroom or parliamentarian. So the inequality we believe that we already overcome, or discrimination we believe that was abolished, are still remaining in our lives. They come back as uninvited guests, and they sometimes evolve in a new form. And the key to bring about peace is keep asking, is it our best? Why should we do that? The reason why I'm doing this work is because I want to ask that question in my career. I think you are also asking that question where you are. And I want to introduce you a Korean proverb. There is a proverb that says, hitting a rock with an egg. It means something that seems impossible, reckless, and no-win. Although you throw eggs on the rock doesn't move, and only eggs break. But you know what? These days, rocks do not like to get dirty with eggs. Rocks that are dirty with eggs, people look at it and ask what happened, and they get uploaded on social media in real time. So it's a hassle for a rock. So although rocks don't break, if you continue to throw eggs, then rocks may make a different choice than the past. So if you continue to observe and ask questions, then we get a courage to throw an egg to the rock. Could you please raise your one hand? Are you ready to throw an egg? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Attorney Kim, for this most inspiring speech. Thank you. After this event, we will upload these videos in both languages on our channel, and I'm sure you have people that come to your mind that you'd like to share this video with. So please do not just take the inspiration for yourselves here, but please share with others afterwards as well. Now, before I invite my next speaker, we are going to play a short video, UN Women's He for She campaign, just as a transition, and then I'll invite our next speaker.
Is at the heart of the matter, as we still live in a male-dominated world with a male-dominated culture.
We want to end gender inequality. And to do this, we need everyone involved.
We men must play an active role in ensuring a more just world.
It's about engaging governments, businesses, and universities, and having them make concrete commitments to gender equality.
Why is it always women who have to break through the glass ceiling? Where are the men willing to throw boulders down through it?
And so you do need men to partner in terms of undoing those injustices when you look at things like pay equality.
Gender equality and gender equity make 100% business sense.
We shall commit ourselves to ensuring that there's no gender-based violence, no child abuse, no forced early child marriages. Men must also take a stand.
Воспитывайте своих детей, объясняйте, что насилие – это неправильно, его не должно быть ни в каком виде.
We have the opportunity to change something now. That's what He for She is about. Gender equality is good for everyone. Are you with us?
Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite you to our next speaker, Ms. Umberto Carollo, Executive Director of White Ribbon Canada. Mr. Carollo traveled all the way from Canada to join us today, and I'd like to acknowledge the special partnership with and support from the Canadian Embassy in Seoul, who mostly kindly enabled us to have Mr. Carollo at this event. In UN Women, we believe that engaging men and boys is an absolute necessity in our journey towards gender equality, and this is why we have invited Mr. Carollo as our speaker. He is leading a global movement to engage men and boys in preventing violence against women and challenging harmful gender norms. He has provided expert guidance on gender equity and healthy masculinities to governments, UN agencies, and organizations, and he serves on advisory councils for Canada's Department of National Defence and Ontario's Domestic Violence Death Review Committee. Ladies and gentlemen, please kindly welcome Mr. Humberto Carollo.
Thank you so much for this kind invitation, and thank you for the wonderful speakers for sharing your story. It has been so inspiring. Honorable delegates, esteemed colleagues, and dedicated advocates, good morning, bonjour, annyeonghaseyo. My name is Umberto Carollo. I'm the CEO of White Ribbon, an organization based in Canada on the traditional territories of the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. It is a privilege to stand before you today on behalf of White Ribbon to celebrate International Women's Day, a day that serves as an opportunity to recognize women's achievements and advocate for gender equality. International Women's Day is not just about honoring women and gender diverse individuals. It is about building a world where everyone can live free from violence, discrimination, and inequality. It is about challenging outdated norms and fostering transformative values. As we gather here in Seoul, we must confront a pressing challenge: the rise of misogyny and harmful gender narratives online. Today, both physical and digital spaces have become hubs where harmful ideologies take root, fueling hatred, reinforcing rigid gender norms, and undermining progress towards equality. The role of men and boys in addressing these issues is essential, and today I invite all of us to work together to contribute to meaningful change. Let us reaffirm our collective commitment to justice, equity, and a future free from all forms of gender-based violence. Many men still view gender equality and gender-based violence as a women's issue, but it's on all of us to step up and join efforts with the women's movement to create change. As a boy and young man, I grew up witnessing inequity and violence, watching the women I love experienced that violence in my home, in the community. As I grew up, I became an adoptive dad of 3 boys who lost their birth family to poverty, addictions, and family violence. I carry with me the promise to help new generations of young people grow up with peace and equality in their homes and communities. Inspired, motivated, and hungry for change, resulting from these difficult chapters in my life, I began my work at White Ribbon 20 years ago this year, an organization dedicated to eradicating gender-based violence through the engagement of boys and men. Today, 20 years later, I am proud to lead White Ribbon and foster change. I share my own connection to this important issue to help men understand the importance of their involvement in gender equality, regardless of their upbringing or their own experiences. Gender equality is good for all of us. We know that gender-based violence is both preventable and predictable, and transforming at individual and society levels are achievable by engaging men and boys. At White Ribbon, we invite and support men to be part of the solution in ending all forms of gender-based violence and discrimination. Our approach is novel, it's life-saving, healing, and highly successful, and we use positive, strength-based, and intersectional approaches to shift minds, hearts, and cultures to create a world free of all forms of gender-based violence and discrimination. As we celebrate International Women's Day, you may be wondering why I'm here speaking about engaging men and boys. To understand that, I want to share with you a little about the origins of White Ribbon. Our roots grew as a response to the December 6, 1989 Montreal massacre that saw hatred rob 14 women of their lives and forever impact our nation in Canada. These women were students on their path to becoming engineers at l'École Polytechnique de Montréal. But the young men that murdered them felt that women had no place in engineering. He walked into a first-year classroom, he asked the men to leave the room, and he took out a gun and killed 14 women because he didn't think that women should be in engineering. And he injured many, many others in the way. This tragedy prompted our transformational work to challenge harmful gender norms and violence and encourage men to not only stop harmful behaviors, but be active agents of change in the gender equity movement. My hope and belief is that one day, our celebrations of women's contributions will no longer require tough conversations about the violence and misogyny that women face on a daily basis. But today, as rights for women and other marginalized genders are advocated for, and we make strides towards equality, there exists a growing resistance, increased discrimination and violence. This is unfortunately nothing new for the movement, although it does come with new and unique challenges. One of these challenges is online hate culture, where boys and young men are being groomed to be violent towards women, girls, and gender diverse people. And that's happening at younger and younger ages. Recently, our national police in Canada arrested an 11-year-old boy who was exhibiting earlier radicalizations into misogynistic hatred. And he was starting to make plans to enact revenge and violence on his female classmates in his school. 11 years old, he was arrested and that violence was prevented. It is incumbent on all of us to do our part in advancing women's rights and equity by challenging all forms of violence, discrimination, and exploitation. At White Ribbon, we believe preventative measures are the most effective solution in creating long-lasting and meaningful change. And we know boys and men have an important role to play, as family members, as friends, as colleagues, leaders, and as allies. In this evolving virtual world, perpetrators of gender-based violence have increased accessibility, tools, and peer support to facilitate technological violence such as sextortion, abuse material, stalking, misinformation, and more. This has led to the manosphere, which includes sites, hubs, blogs, and online communities where misogynistic information and violent rhetoric is shared and discussed, which can often tunnel into extremism. This stems from a culture of misogyny that has been long embedded in our society. But we are working to change that, to dream and to transform. Studies have shown that men who adhere to rigid, traditional masculine gender norms tend to condone and commit higher levels of gender-based violence, while men who are aware of their privilege may be less likely to use control and violence in their relationships. Harmful gender norms also play a prominent role in violence and hate crimes against women and gender-diverse individuals. Between 2022 and 2023, CyberTip Canada noted a 45% increase in sexual exploitation reports. While young men and boys are victimized by this too, they are also the main perpetrators of this violence. In fact, further studies show that 75% of users that engage in violent extremism content online are men. As feminist movements advance in pursuit of equity, dialogue in male-dominated online spaces often equate male disconnections or failings as the fault of feminism, arguing that women's success exists to disempower men. This irrational thought feeds into some men's anger and hate, which can and does lead to intimate and sexual violence. Embracing equity and healthy masculinities is the way out of this harmful rhetoric and action. Gender-specific prevention and intervention methods are needed to change this culture and turn decades of a future free, and turn dreams of a future free from all forms of gender-based violence into a reality. But how do we do this? White Ribbon not only intervenes, but prevents. Our early intervention and prevention programs for boys and young men exhibiting misogyny or who have witnessed domestic violence have proven to be extremely effective in creating life-changing outcomes. So this is, yes, much more than about raising awareness. It's about engaging culture change, changing attitudes, minds, and hearts so that we move forward in a different way. Over the past 30 years working alongside communities and researchers, White Ribbon has established evidence-based best practices for working with men and boys. Youth that adhere to attitudes of gender equity reported lower rates of violence perpetration in all aspects of their life, including dating. Prevention supports the critical analysis of gender norms, challenges homophobia and gender-based harassment, and builds skills to question harmful masculine norms and to interrupt disrespectful behaviors. A primary prevention approach lessens the chances of boys using violence and eliminates the suffering and inequality of women and girls in the first place. Primary prevention effectively utilizes social marketing to create changes in attitudes, behaviors, and social norms in the individual, community, and society at large. Investing in primary prevention saves lives and stops violence from happening now and in the future. It saves lives and is more economical in the long term. Our innovative programs are trauma-informed and survivor-centered. Our programs are also help boys and men redefine harmful norms and increase accountability. In the digital space, our Remodeling Our Masculinities program covers a digital series featuring young social activists and community leaders that explore the topics of masculinity, equity, social justice, gender and sexual diversity, mental health, and allyship. This program advocates for a healthy online presence and socially responsible influencers. They are the alternatives to the misogynistic influencers that are so common, so popular now in the manosphere. We gotta switch those voices. We gotta empower boys and young men to become role models into the future. Most notably in the digital media sphere, White Ribbon is world-renowned for our public education campaigns that change social norms, attitudes, and behaviors. Some of those campaigns include Boys Don't Cry, which calls on boys and men to rethink harmful gender norms and stereotypes in order to promote healthier, peaceful, and inclusive alternatives. This campaign teaches men and boys to express a full range of healthy emotions, including empathy, compassion, breaking through expectations and stereotypes. We call on parents and educators to help boys and young men understand the importance of expressing healthy emotions rather than resorting to anger, control, and dominance to get their needs met. Why is it that we teach boys and young men that anger is the only acceptable emotion for boys and men to exhibit? Why aren't we teaching them that it's okay to feel hurt, to cry, to be emotional, to ask for help? We need to do that differently. And we need to start at younger ages. And we all have a role to play. Educators, parents, community leaders, faith leaders, everyone. Day after day asks men and boys to reach out for help with their emotional needs instead of choosing to use violence in their relationships. Across Canada and around the world, we saw an increase in intimate partner violence during the COVID-19 pandemic. This campaign was in response to this horrible social trend, and the way to disrupt it, call the violence out and ask men to choose a different path and commit to change. Short life stories helps men and boys understand the connection between gender-based violence, hatred, and transphobia. Sadly, LGBTQ+ communities face constant discrimination and harassment during their daily lives. Yet men can use their power of healthy masculinities to show allyship and help end the rise of hate, violence, and transphobia by speaking out against everyday discrimination and violence towards LGBTQ+ communities. My Friend Max Hate, our newest campaign, draws attention to the impact of online misogyny and hatred on the lives of boys and young men, and subsequently on their use of violence and harassment towards women and girls and gender diverse people. We ask men to positively influence the young people in their lives, to help counter the hateful voices with voices of empathy, of compassion, and allyship. These campaigns and programs can be found on White Ribbon's website and have had millions of eyes on them, with many sharing stories of how it has impacted them positively, how women and gender diverse individuals have felt seen, heard, and validated, and how men and boys have been inspired to take accountability, to shift socio-cultural norms, call others into action, and most importantly, pledge a future free from gender-based violence. At the beginning of my remarks, I said that gender-based violence is both predictable and preventable. We have studied the trends, spoken with communities, and many of us have recognized these predictable patterns ourselves as witnesses and survivors of violence. We know now what we need to do, and I know as a large group of committed individuals, we can do it. As we celebrate International Women's Day and Week, I stand with you to urge men and boys to challenge harmful narratives occurring in their circles, in their workplaces, schools, and communities. I invite you to have tough conversations about what this means for the future of our sisters, our mothers, our daughters, and friends, for our future too. Imagine a world where all genders feel cared about and safe, a world free from violence, a world where we can spend International Women's Day celebrating the triumphs of women rather than discussing the rampant violence that occurs towards them. Please join me in inviting your communities to commit to ending all forms of gender-based violence across the globe. Together, with your allyship, we can make waves of change for a better future. Thank you. Merci. Kamsa Hamnida.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Garolo, for this most inspiring speech. Thank you. You know, I was having a coffee yesterday with our speaker, and then we were discussing how in Korea that we put so much emphasis on children's education, that we are spending so much of our money and time for mathematics, for English, and all sorts of different subjects, but how are we not really spending as much energy and time to educate our boys on gender equality? So I think this serves as a wonderful reminder that this is a very, very important agenda that we cannot afford to ignore. So thank you so much, Mr. Garolo, for your most inspiring speech. Now, the final inspiration that I'd like to invite you is related to a very sad fact of life. The sad fact of life is that we will all become ill at some point and we'll all die. And the people that we love will also face illness at some point in their lives, and they will also die. I'm reminding you of these sad realities because our next speaker will be exactly speaking on these issues, the gender inequalities in care for the sick and the elderly. So now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Jang Suk Lang, Dean of the Red Cross College of Nursing at Jungwon University. She's a renowned scholar on this important subject of care for the sick and the elderly. And she previously served as the president of the Korea Society for Primary Healthcare and the Korean Society for Equity in Health. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Jang.
Yes, hello. I remember the moment my daughter was out of nappy for the first time. I cheered, I hurried. Not because I was proud of my daughter, but because it was actually liberating not to have to clean up her poo. And then a few years ago, the day I changed my father's nappy for the first time, I burst into tears. I am not sure it was out of pity for my dad, who used to be strict and neat, or it was out of fear of the extreme caregiving labor that awaited me. Maybe it was a bit of both, but I remember the long ago version of myself singing hooray. But changing nappy was not my work, it was my mom's work, my mom who was suffering cancer, and I had a dual work of caring for my mom who was suffering cancer and my dad. Toileting is one of those things that looks like caring. If you are doing it for yourself, it's self-care, which is natural. If parents do it, it's parenting, which you should be happy about. And if sons and daughters do it, it's care for the elderly, which is sad. But after all, it's the same labor. Care is something we all need to do at some point in our lives, but the quantity and quality of care is not equitable for everyone. So today, I want to talk about a fair care society. According to the National Survey of the Elderly in Korea, nearly 90% of the elderly are cared for by their family members. No matter how well a society has a long-term care system or services, the primary source of care comes from close family members and close relationship. We shouldn't forget this. The country can take care of this. The society can take care of this. Well, it's not the reality. We call this informal caregiving. And interestingly, the gender distribution of informal caregivers varies between societies. In Korea, more than 70% of informal caregivers, such as family members and relatives, are women. There are countries where the gender ratio is 50-50, but in countries with a strong family culture such as Korea, the proportion of women is higher. In my research, I noticed something unusual, and I see Korean men here are quite nervous. And Korean men are particularly dependent on their spouses for care. It seemed like it was difficult to find a carer other than a spouse. Compared to other countries, Korean men are much more likely to rely on their spouses for care and much less likely to rely on their children or other official caregivers for care. And they couldn't really get care if they didn't have a spouse. Is it that they don't want to be cared for by someone other than their spouse? Or is it that it's not easy to find someone, well, other than the family members? So we looked into this. So public care, such as home visits by caregivers, is also less likely for men than for women. Well, is this because Korean male elders feel negative and ashamed of their dependency, or because they are reluctant to rely on other heterosexual carers? Well, I don't want to really point out, well, this is because like men's characteristics or like men are somewhat to blame. It's like structural issue, and this results in caregiving inequalities for both men and women. From the perspective of the care recipient, a care deficit occurs when the wife is absent or unavailable to provide care. And also, the caregiving woman has a sole care burden. And older women carers are often in poor health conditions themselves and sometimes suffer from depression because of their unavoidable caregiving responsibilities. And they are overwhelmed by the natural slavery, so to say, of caring for their children, parents, or in-laws, spouses, and grandchildren. And Attorney Kim talked about 40 years ago, and I would like to talk about 600 years ago. In Korea, there was a practice called 고려장, which is an ancient burial practice where a dying elderly is left to die in an open tomb. So a child carries a parent into a mountain and then leaves the dying parent there. It's because they were in an economic hardship and they couldn't really support their parents any longer. But mother left in the mountain could see other older people there, but found that she's still younger and healthier compared to other people in the mountain, but she was left there So she picked up a stone, and then she started to break her teeth because she wanted to look older, because she didn't want her son to be blamed for leaving her at a relatively younger age. So this was 600 years ago, but this culture still remains because older Korean women are burdened with dual and triple care work. And they need to take care of many people at the same time or take care of many people in a row. So they need to apply for different health services, and they need to take care of themselves and others. And their spectrum of work is very diverse. And this dual and triple work is not just left to older women, but also women in their 20s, 30s, and 40s as well. So there's a lot of structural burden on Korean women. In May in Korea is called the Family Month. So some organizations or regions have a filial piety awards ceremony. So the press release showed a woman receiving an award for her double and triple care of her parents-in-law, husband, and disabled brother-in-law. And it was heartbreaking. Recognizing and rewarding dutiful daughters-in-law with awards are not really helpful. Our society should not so easily recognize such situations, but rather provide more active and stronger policy support to prevent double and triple care burdens. Our research showed that countries with a greater reliance on women in the family to provide care had high prevalence rate of depression among women providing care than other countries. So women who provided more care had lower levels of social participation. So countries that take it for granted that informal caring roles are imposed on women and think it's natural will need to redesign their care strategy. These cultural and institutional systems are negative for women, but for men too. Men will inevitably suffer from lack of care if they have no one to care for them, and women will inevitably suffer from depression because of the burden of care. And the tragedy of men will become the tragedy of women. And so far I've talked about informal caregiving. Now I will move on to formal caregiving. And this responsibility and burden of caregiving should be shared between gender. And I am a nurse. I have been a nurse, and most of my students work as nurses in hospitals, nursing homes, and health centers. And nurses struggle in care settings because there are too many patients, and they often give up on nursing and quit their jobs. And the turnover rate is 44%. So hospitals are short of nurses. So they recruit a lot of nurses every year, but they treat nurses badly. So nurses quit easily and go to other hospitals where nurses are treated better. So many nurses call themselves tissue workers. So, like tissues are like one of use, and caregivers who support the elderly often describe themselves as they're kept in the closet, because there are 2.5 million certified caregivers, but only 20% are active because most of their certifications are left in the cabinet. So most of them suffer from job insecurity, prejudice against the profession, poor working conditions, inadequate pay, unclear tasks, heavy workload, and low social recognition. There is a high turnover rate, and the sector faces a recruitment shortage. And there are also people who are more vulnerable, carers for the sick. They are even worse off because there are no accurate statistics on how many are working in our society, no workforce management, no recruitment standards, no professional training. Most of them are foreigners, and the current working conditions are exploitative for foreign workers. And more than 80% of typical public care workers, such as nurses, caregivers for the elderly, and care aides for the sick, are women. This is skewed by social structures and cultural expectations. And the value of care work should be reassessed and revisited. Care work is essential labor, and we need to ensure fair wage and working conditions for care workers and increase job security. A gender-neutral culture of care must be established to recognize that care work is not exclusively a female role. Policy support is needed to ensure that care work is distributed fairly regardless of gender. And regardless of gender, young or old, we will need to create a sustainable care system. Caring is an essential virtue that underpins our society. We will not be able to create a society that is sustainable unless we recognize the value of care. So we will need to respect care workers, and it is high time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zhang, for this most inspiring speech. It truly enlightened us to think about the issues that are not just personal within our families, but they are really national and global in nature, and gave us very critical insights to think through these issues. So thank you very much. Now, last but not least, I'm going to invite Dr. Vu Fong Lee, who is the officer in charge of the UN Women Knowledge and Partnership Center here in Seoul. She's been with the UN Women for 16 years and is currently leading the center's efforts on training programs for the Asia-Pacific region. She will deliver the closing speech.
Thank you, Ajahn. So, Excellency, distinguished guests and partner, on behalf of the UN Women's Center of Knowledge and Partnership Center in the Republic of Korea, I sincerely thank you for taking your valuable time to commemorate International Women's Day with us today. This marks the third year that our UN Women's Center has organized the International Women's Day commemoration in the Republic of Korea since its opening in 2022. I'm pleased to see that this annual celebration evolving into a meaningful occasion for us to come together, reflect on women's achievement, and advocate for positive change to advance gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls. 30 years after the adoption of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, complex challenges stand in the way of gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls. Women and girls are demanding change, and they deserve nothing less. We have already heard inspiring speech and with the wonderful lunch ahead, I will keep my closing remark in brief. So on the screen, you are seeing some of the photos from our brand new report. Yes. Called Girl Goal, What Are Change for Girls? Adolescent Right. So the report is Girl Goal, What Has Changed for Girls? Adolescent Girls' Rise Over 30 Years, which UN Women just launched last Friday together with UNICEF and Plan International. I wanted to end our commemoration looking at the face of these girls, representing our future and hopes. I'm a mother of 2 girls myself, and they are the source of inspiration and energy for my work at UN Women. I'm sure many of you can think of your daughters, nieces, cousins, and granddaughters. You see, what we have shared over the past 2 hours is not just abstract theory. It is about creating a better future for the girl in your life whom you love and care for. Equally important, it is about shaping a better future for the boys who will grow up to share their life with them. So let us remember this faith and reaffirm to one another that gender equality is not just a right path, it is the only path to a just, prosperous, and sustainable future for all. Let us keep moving forward steadily and with unwavering determination on this journey. Thanks for standing with us at UN Women. Before I close, I would like to sincerely thank to our wonderful speaker for their insight contribution and lifelong service to women and girls. I also want to acknowledge the generous support from the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family for UN Women and for our center in Republic of Korea. Last but not least, I would like to express my gratitude to my delegate team, especially Ajang Lee, who hard work have made this annual celebration possible. I hope to see you again in this next event of UN Women. Thank you very much. 감사합니다.
Thank you so much, Lee, for your remarks. Really heart to heart to look at the faces, so thank you so much. Now, this concludes our 2025 International Women's Day celebration. I know some of you have been here for two times or even 3 times. How many of you would like to come again next year if you are invited? So please do come again next year. We'd love to have you again. And thank you so much for spending your day with us to celebrate, to commemorate, to think through, and to strategize together of what to do for gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls. Now, I don't want to stand in the way between you and the lunch. The lunch is served in the hall in a buffet style, so please help yourself. Halal as well as vegetarian dishes are all provided, so please kind of help yourself. If you need the car parking registration, the staff of the Lotte Hotel will also help you. And your interpretation devices, please leave them on the tables, and please do not take them to your homes. I've seen that before. So once again, thank you so much. Enjoy your lunch, and we look forward to seeing you again next year. Thank you.